All right, we got one more Nakamura game, or a few more. This one is Nakamura as black against Yakovin.
Yeah, Yakov. His name is Yakov N. I know this guy. His real name is Yakov Norovich. He is a very strong blitz player. He is actually not titled, but like he has a reputation in the chess world as a very strong blitz player who's untitled, but can beat grandmasters in blitz, and that's why his rating is exceptionally high at 24-15. So it's he's a very good player. But Nakamura has a very good record against him.
So this is the closest match we've seen so far, rating wise.
Yes, it is. It is. And this guy will give Nakamura a good challenge, hopefully.
So we've seen the queens have been traded off, and then the knight was on h6, and now we just saw the bishop pair. White traded the bishop pair away to take a pawn on e5. So now white's up a pawn, but now there's doubled pawns on the file.
Nakamura actually made a mistake here. White actually has a pretty significant, not significant, but has a pretty solid edge here. A pawn's a pawn, even though it's doubled.
So this time his funny opening shenanigans didn't work for him.
Yeah, and see that's why funny openings they don't work so well against better players, but sometimes they do. But see the problem here for Naka is Naka likes lots of pieces. Here he's down a pawn, but also there's not many pieces left on the board. There's very limited options Naka can do to complicate things or outthink his opponent because the pieces are so limited. If there's queens on or another extra set of minor pieces, Nakamura could do something brilliant. But it's hard to do something brilliant when you have very few pieces.
Because it's hard to set up double attacks when there's only 4 pieces.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, pretty much. I think Nakamura probably should take on f3 or something. Try to get a knight versus. Okay, maybe not, but I was thinking he should take and try to get a better knight versus bishop endgame, but maybe he calculated that it wasn't as good as I envisioned it.
Yeah, I don't know. Bishops are usually pretty strong, right?
They are, but I just this is weird because the knights often can be better in endgames like this, but I think Nakamura made the right choice probably.
All right, so knight d2 is retreating, but it's also overprotecting the e4 square.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and maybe ideas of f4 potentially moving the knight to b3. The very Naka's down a pawn, but it's very hard for white to make progress here. It's very annoying.
Yeah, there aren't. White needs to develop the rook that's on a1, but it's not clear what weaknesses black has in his position.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now c3 is hanging. Yeah,
and it's difficult, if not impossible, to defend it.
And now he's already winning the pawn back if he takes on d3. But maybe Naka wants more. Maybe knight b2 is an idea. I don't know. Maybe Naka wants more than the pawn. He can just knight takes c3 now, or takes and then take on c3. There you go. And now black's actually better because white's pawn structure is weak. And also notice how all of white's pawns are the same color as his bishop. The h3, g2, f3, e4. That's very conducive to a vulnerable dark square attack for black. So black just moves his king up. See his king has easy access to the position because of white's pawn structure.
Yeah, the pawns, white's pawns, 5 of them are on the light square, which is the same color as bishop, which is a weakness, right, Evan?
Yep, exactly. In general, with you want to have pawns on the opposite color of your bishop. That's kind of a general rule.
Then you'll have more mobility.
You have more mobility, and also you control more squares, right? If your pawns are on dark squares, they cover dark squares. If your pawns are on light squares, they cover light squares. Just by definition.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. And now Naka's just outplaying him slowly.
So f5, that attacks the center, gains a lot of space.
Yep. Now Yakov is trying to trade off some pieces. When you're cramped, you want to trade down pieces because if you have e5 is a good move, I think.
Getting his pawns on dark squares if he can.
See, once again, now bishop. What's Naka's idea there? He's just completely killing white's knight. Completely killed it.
Yeah, that knight is stuck, huh?
Yeah. And now he's tying down the rook to the knight, so he's not going to take that knight for a little bit. Let's see how now white's rook won't be able to penetrate. Maybe Naka will take on g2 on b1 and then go rook g7 and transfer that. I'm not sure how he's going to improve here.
That makes sense to me. That's one way to capture the open file.
Yeah. He's not doing it yet. Okay, now he's going to do it. Now rook g7 maybe? Yeah, there we go.
So there's only...
Naka's probably, his winning plan here is probably going to maneuver his knight somehow to d4 or a very strong square, get his king open, and win all of white's pawns, and then that'll be his winning plan. but also this plan works. King e3 is met by rook to d2, I think, or because then rook takes b2, pawn takes b2, king takes out queen.
So that c3 pawn is like almost a piece. It's it's
it's
holding his whole army together, in his opponent's base.
And it allowed the penetration of the rook to d2. It's just like that pawn on c3 is a star.
So and now he traded away that pawn for the h pawn.
Mm-hmm. I think he liquidated to. I think he calculated this as a one in game for black. It's complicated. I'm not sure it's one. It's also they're getting time pressure now too. So now it's just like going real quick.
So Nakamura still has 30 seconds, which is something that must be considered.
Yeah. But yeah, see, objectively, it's probably a draw position, but Naka's up on time, and that's why he didn't go for the repetition there.
So now he's trying to promote the other pawn. But now, I mean, white could be better here technically, but it's all about time. Oh,
yeah, it's all about time. You have 0 seconds. Yeah. I think Nakamura didn't play that as well as he could have, but, it was good enough because enough time. The guy was low on time.
He got there.
This guy's, I know, GM Daka. Okay. This guy's also very strong. GM player, obviously, in 2400. And here we go again. Like, he's avoiding theory by doing all this stuff.
So black has chosen sort of a Sicilian structure, and white has chosen the b3 setup again.
Yep. The idea of this setup with bishop b2 against the Sicilian is to get like control over e5.
Okay.
Usually white takes on c6 at some point, but maybe not in this case. But yeah, he does in this case, and e5, yep. It's all about the e5 square. He's going to establish that hole on e5, and from there going to launch the operations from there. So he's probably going knight d2, knight c4, or knight d2, knight f3, really secure that e5 spot. And even though white black has the two bishops, like the two knights are really good in this position.
So it was interesting to me that the b1 knight he didn't develop it until after he controlled the e5 square, and it seems to me like that was like really intentional. Like he knew like, okay, I have to control e5 first, and then I'm gonna like finish my development.
Yeah, exactly. And also, in the opening, you never want to develop your pieces aimlessly. You always want to develop your pieces with the goal in mind. So he knew his goal was to put his piece on e5, so that's why he didn't go knight c3 too early or put knight d2 so early. He wanted to make sure he had a established post on e5 before he developed his knight. So now a very fluid development.
Cool. So he takes back with the bishop. Now he plays knight. So what about, I don't know, I'm thinking about b5, trying to dislodge the knight, forcing...
Yeah, b5, but then probably bishop takes f6 and then knight e5, and then you have a case of good bishop versus, good knight versus bad bishop. That's
you're right.
b5, and then, yeah, knight bishop takes f6 is actually kind of forced. But yeah, he did that even without b5. Queen to d4. Going for trade of queens. Nakamura probably does not want to trade. Probably can just go back, maybe queen.
The backwards c2 pawn would be really weak if he traded queens, right?
Yeah, yeah. And also, in general, queen and knight is a much better team than queen and bishop. So you want to, if you can, maintain the queens. If you have that coordination together with the knight and queen. So eventually, I think Nakamura is going to outmaneuver him here, just with the knight and queen. And the reason they work better than queen and bishop is because knight and queen they have different powers, and I'm surprised he exchanged there. Now black is doing okay.
Yeah, does white have an advantage?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty even now.
Okay. I guess he didn't want to retreat.
Like f4, right? That's his only shot.
Yeah, he better play f4, I think.
Yeah, but now queen to d5 or b6, yeah. I don't see any advantage for white here whatsoever.
Okay, and they have the same amount of time, too.
Yeah. So Naka might be in a little trouble here. He doesn't want to draw, but... I mean, draw wouldn't be the worst thing. 2400 draw is not the worst thing. If anything, white has an edge here because he has potential to play a5 and get weaken black's pawn structure. But
so they used to call Mikhail Tal, the great tactician, the magician from Riga, right? And for me, Nakamura is a little bit like a magician because I watch his games and I don't know, this is an equal position, but I have a feeling that Nakamura is going to win. You know what I mean? Like Nakamura seems to, pull it off so consistently.
He does. In Blitz games at least, like he has an art of just like making his opponent. He poses the most difficult questions to his opponent that are possible. It's like, see, notice like at least before this move, Nako was slowly gaining time. He was up like 10 seconds and he was behind a little bit. Like he makes his opponent think He's a magician in the way that he just like he creates so many problems for his opponent, makes it imbalanced and unclear, and so that usually people can't keep up with his with his speed of thought. Even grandmasters here. So if Nakamura's going to be on time here because his opponent can't keep up, but it seems like Black's doing okay.
So like when he's pre-moving, these ideas, like when he's thinking during his opponent's turn, getting ready to play a move as soon as his opponent plays one, like, but he isn't saying like, okay, I'm gonna play this move no matter what my opponent does. He has like, 5 different responses to 5 different ideas like planned.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty common. Every strong Blitz or Boa player, has several ideas in mind. It's just that his depth. I think most people plan maybe 1 or 2 or 3 moves, or maybe say me, I'm like an average like FM player, pretty strong, but I probably only foresee maybe 2 to 3 moves. Like I calculate his options. I have a few different plans idea. Maybe the depth of my lines are maybe 2 or 3 moves. Nakamura's are probably like 6 or 7. Like his are, just done on a different level. But by the way, Black is winning this game, I think, if Nakamura isn't careful.
Okay, because it looks like this G4 pawn is hanging in.
Yeah.
The G pawn is going to be really dominant, and the backwards D3 pawn isn't really getting mobilized.
Yeah, the question is if Black can afford to take on G4 because of B6, or are you just going to take the draw here?
Well, first Nakamura is going to get a time advantage somehow, just playing back and forth. So the king does take. So now he has 18 versus 26 seconds, so this is really a time scramble.
Yep.
The A pawn is black gets the A pawn, white gets the C pawn. We've doubled, not doubled, but we've connected pass pawns for white that aren't very mobilized versus an A pawn that's pretty far up.
Mm-hmm. And Nakamura's probably with us on time, but it's very close, very close. King B. I don't even know what to do here. Rook D.
Okay, so white gets the A pawn. The G pawn's coming. Pushes, sacks the rook for a queen.
Nakamura's going to win on time. With the queen, he can pre-move to win victory here.
You can just check, right?
Queen is such a big edge here. Yeah, the guy's out of time.
He stacks his queen and his opponent runs out of time.
Yep. Oh, man. And see, that's what I mean. Like, Nakamura, like, have a completely drawn position. He held on long enough to make it. He made as many complications as possible to make his opponent run out of time, even though a completely drawn position. He made it at the end game.
He knew that he needed like a 4-second time advantage, and then he won with that 4-second time advantage, right?
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's all he needs. I bet Nakamura's even comfortable if he can get to a position where it's only 20 seconds left, and say he's even down 5 seconds, he can outflag his opponent. That's such an big edge to have. If you can survive to 20 seconds, that you can outflag your opponent. If you're anywhere close in time near the end, that gives him such an edge.
Yeah,
like he wouldn't mind like being down 10 seconds or 15 seconds as long as he can get there, right? Because he can outflag. His 5 seconds is like nothing to Nakamura.